the danger of Labour. Just put aside for a moment whether you'll be financially better off or not, because a vote for Labour is a vote for the worst woke nonsense this country has ever seen. It is a vote for victim culture on stilts, such as the tearing down of many more British statues and monuments. Labour have always had it in for our history and heritage. And can you imagine our precious country in the hands of someone as uncultured as Angela Rayner? They've just announced a law to make Islamophobia, so-called Islamophobia, illegal. So calling out halal slaughter or the mass rape gangs who prey exclusively on young white girls would become a criminal offence. Labour also plan to bring in a raft of new laws curtailing free speech on the internet. So if you disagree with any of the woke nonsense, the police could soon be at your door. And don't forget, Kier Starmer is the man who refused to agree that a man is someone born with a penis and a woman is someone born with a vagina. So he completely disagreed with J.K. Rowling's view that a trans man is actually a woman. Imagine having somebody like that as your Prime Minister. And also just think about the woke dogma that Labour would introduce into our schools. For example, promoting and normalising sexual deviance. And guess what? They have just announced that they're going to make it easier for children and people of all ages to change sex. And that will just be the start. They've not been in power for 14 years. So a whole generation has grown up with no memory of what the looney-left do once they're in office. Apart from the odd example where Labour councils have changed Christmas lights into winter lights, so as not to offend ethnic minorities. Imagine that on a nationwide basis. A vote for Labour is a vote for 15-minute cities, where you will be fined if you travel to other parts of your own town or city in the name of reducing CO2 levels. It's all part of the steady movement towards a dystopian 1984 type existence. Remember where the proletariat were not permitted to move out of their own areas. And motorists were continued to be treated with contempt. A vote for Labour is also a vote for even more ridiculous diversity, equity and equality DEI jobs that drain the NHS and other public services of funds. Labour have always supported mass immigration, so expect the highest rates ever. Our towns and cities are changing beyond recognition, and it will get much, much worse if you vote Labour. And Labour will build millions of houses all over the Greenbelt, all over the beautiful English countryside, in order to house this never-ending stream of economic migrants and asylum seekers that they will definitely allow to continue year after year. And believe me, you won't be better off financially, because Labour are the party of the big state, where money is constantly poured into the public sector instead of helping the businesses that actually create our wealth. They're always creating new departments that look after ethnic minorities and so-called oppressed groups. They're always buying into the whole idea, the divisive idea of victim culture. And historically, whenever Labour have won an election, a shudder has gone through the stock exchange and share prices have fallen. In fact, the whole business world recoils whenever Labour take power. Business is the only way this country or any country can create wealth and for any of us to get richer. So it's all very well saying they're going to pour more money into public services and public jobs, but they're all paid for out of taxation, which ultimately comes from the money generated by businesses. A vote for Labour is also a vote to continue the nonsense of net zero that is literally costing this country trillions of pounds. Just think of how all those electricity bills shot up under the Conservatives. But it would continue just like that under Labour, because they're even worse when it comes to these crazy net zero targets. And all that means really is that instead of producing our own oil and gas and coal in order to produce essential things like steel and tarmac for roads that cannot be produced without coal or oil, we have to import fossil fuels from abroad. And this might tick the right net zero boxes, but in reality, it's just increasing the global carbon footprint. And in any case, historically, it's the sun that's been responsible for all the thousands of previous instances of climate change. Because all of those previous instances came before industrialization. So climate change couldn't have been caused by fossil fuels. They weren't in the atmosphere. In fact, it might well be that the whole greenhouse gas CO2 scare is all nonsense anyway. It's all being pushed by the mainstream media, which, as I'm sure you know, is owned by a small group of extremely rich globalists, led by the World Economic Forum, the WEF, and guess who is a huge, massive supporter of the WEF? Yes, none other than Kier Starmer. This is the danger of Labour. Kier Starmer, just like Rishi Sunak, is actually just a globalist shill. We don't just need change, as Labour say. We need a complete reformation. And the Reform Party pledged to end mass immigration as a top priority. Only they will leave the ECHR and stop the boats from day one. Over 1 million immigrants arrive in these tiny islands every single year. That's equivalent to 2 cities the size of Manchester, which has a population of 503,000, arriving every single year. Mass immigration is the real reason there is a chronic housing shortage and the never-ending shortages in the NHS. Did you know that around 80% of all immigrants who've arrived since 1997, which is estimated to be around 12 million, including descendants, are firmly on benefits? So it's an absolute nonsense to say that immigration is of a financial benefit to this country. Reform will change the law so that no one will pay any tax on the first £20,000 they earn, which will be a massive relief not just to the poorest in society, but it will benefit the better off too. It will mean that every earner is instantly £1,600 a year better off. That's enough to pay for a pretty nice holiday. And the thing is, it will encourage those on benefits to start taking part-time work, which previously they would have been taxed on. I mean, currently they have little or no incentive to come off benefits. Reform also planned to protect cash, banning card-only transactions in shops, and to take other measures to ensure that cash continues. Without cash, it would become possible for the banks or the state to close down your bank account, meaning that you would be unable to buy anything, even food. And of course, eventually this could happen just because you have been known to express extreme right-wing or extreme left-wing views on the internet, for example. It would mean that the government or the council could introduce a social credit system, such as the one already implemented in China, for whatever reason they want. It would, of course, be justified by improved safety or protection or something like this. But removing cash is a huge threat to freedom. Reform also intends to build new medical schools to stop the unnecessary import of doctors and nurses from abroad, where they are removed from their own countries, which are in just as much need, if not greater need, of doctors and nurses themselves. In fact, Reform are the only truly patriotic party who want to stop the decline of Britain and protect us from the scary rise of the globalists, who want to create an open-bordered world where nations are no longer self-governing. In fact, the WEF are quite open about this being their ultimate goal. Reform will also stop the steady transfer of power to unelected global bodies such as the WHO, the World Health Organization. Both Labour and Conservatives want to give the WHO the right to decide whether or not we lock down during any future pandemic. Britain would then have to comply with whatever the WHO told us to do. For example, issuing compulsory vaccination mandates. If you value freedom and you want to save your nation, vote Reform. Finally, please like and subscribe and share this video with as many people as possible so that everyone knows about the danger of Labour.